Hello everyone, in this video I will show you a complete guide for the Bamboocut Dust Path. The Dust Path was just introduced with the Hexi update last week and I've been playing it ever since with the inner ways at tiers 5 and 6. The build was designed for group PvP since it has a ton of AoE skills and some inner ways that require you to hit multiple targets, so it will be one of the top builds for Guild War and 3v3 arena. Despite this, it is also one of the best DPS builds in the game right now, absolutely destroying any boss on any difficulty and allowing you to get top DPS in multiplayer modes easily. It also has built-in healing through its inner ways, which gives it a massive edge compared to other builds. The build focuses on dealing critical hits and you get a lot of skills and effects that increase your critical rate and critical damage. We'll talk more about stats and gear later in the video. Before we get into the DPS rotation and other details, we have to briefly explain what each martial art does. Feel free to skip to the next part if you're already familiar with the skills and how they work. This build consists of the Everspring Umbrella and Unfettered Rope Dart martial arts. The Everspring Umbrella will be your main DPS martial art, while the Rope Dart will be your buffer and debuffer martial art. The Scarlet Spin martial art skill will be your main skill with this build. You will be spamming this 90% of the time to deal a ton of DPS at close or long range. After casting this skill, you get the Flower Burial buff, which lasts 12 seconds. While in the Flower Burial state, you consume one Fading Crimson resource to throw one Returning Umbrella, dealing damage twice to enemies in its path, once when you throw it and once when it returns to you. What is Fading Crimson? Fading Crimson is the main resource consumed by the Everspring Umbrella to throw umbrellas and deal damage. You can identify it by these red flower petals on the umbrella icon in the lower right corner. The Flower Burial state will end either after 12 seconds or when you run out of the Fading Crimson resource. There's another mechanic which is not described in the skill, which is called Perfect Catch. This is the most important mechanic you need to master to get the most out of this build. Whenever you throw a Returning Umbrella, there's a moment when you can press the Scarlet Spin skill button again to trigger a Perfect Catch, which will enhance your next umbrella throw. You can look at the skill button when you are casting it and you will see it glow at certain moments. That's when you can trigger a Perfect Catch to deal enhanced damage and get various buffs. Eventually, after playing this build for a while, you will start to get used to the Perfect Catch timing without having to watch the skill button. Usually the moment comes right after the umbrella reaches maximum range. The Cyclone Waltz special skill makes you jump on the umbrella's handle and it spins on the ground, giving you tenacity and pulling enemies in. You can move while casting this skill and you can cancel it at any time. If a Phantom Umbrella exists and you cast this skill, you will swap places with it and then you can recast the skill to swap places back. What is a Phantom Umbrella? This is a special mark which is created by your martial art, special skill or charged attack. You can see it in the form of this pink umbrella ghost. It lasts for 5 seconds and only one Phantom Umbrella can be active at a time. And lastly, your charged heavy attack, Dream Route Bubbles, makes you charge and throw a Returning Umbrella forward. When it reaches its furthest point, it generates a Phantom Umbrella for 5 seconds. Now let's talk about the martial arts talents. Perfect Catch Enhancement is what enables your Perfect Catch mechanic. Triggering a Perfect Catch not only makes the umbrella deal more damage, but you also gain one stack of Falling Blossoms for 5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. At 3 stacks, it transforms into Fragrant Song. When you have Fragrant Song and you use the martial art, the next umbrella flies 30% faster, is guaranteed to be a critical hit, and you can trigger a Perfect Catch at any moment, not just during the perfect window. Physical Attack Up increases your mean physical attack based on agility. Returning Umbrella Damage Up increases the physical damage of the Umbrella martial art skill by up to 15% based on your minimum physical attack. Bamboocut Attribute Up increases your Bamboocut attack and penetration based on minimum Bamboocut attack. Attribute Attack Enhancement makes your attack scale by 50% more with Bamboocut attack compared to physical attack. As you can see, the Everspring Umbrella is your main DPS martial art and it gives you a 12 seconds DPS window and a ton of damage buffs. Let's move on to the Unfettered Rope Dart, which is your buffer and debuffer martial art. The Soul Sweep martial art skill makes you enter soulbound state, then unleashing 3 sweeping strikes. After the skill is finished, you enter the charging state automatically and you gain soulbound again when you cast the Piercing Dart charged attack. When you inflict Soul Break, you gain Soul Return. That's a lot of new keywords, so let's break them down. Soulbound is a buff which makes your rope dart attacks apply soul loss to targets hit. How exactly can you tell if you're in soulbound state? You can see this by the blue enhancement on your rope dart and the blue ghost buff above your health bar. At 7 stacks, Soul Loss transforms into Soul Break. Targets with the Soul Break debuff take 5% more chi damage and HP damage from the applier of the effect. Soul Return is a buff that reduces the resource cost of all martial arts skills, which means the Scarlet Spin skill of your umbrella. How can you tell if the enemy has Soul Loss or Soul Break? Just look at the enemy debuff bar below their health. The stacking ghost debuff is the Soul Loss, and the bigger ghost debuff which doesn't stack is the Soul Break. Soul Return is indicated by this dart icon on your buff bar and it lasts 18 seconds, which is more than enough time to complete your full DPS rotation. Moving on to the special skill, Burn and Bury, which ignites nearby enemies inflicted with Soul Loss or Soul Break, dealing damage and slowing them for 5 seconds. It deals increased damage to targets with Soul Break and you enter Breath Hold, and it deals 30% increased damage to boss enemies. Next we have the Charging Stance, which is identical to the one from the Mortal Rope Dart. At 1.5 seconds you enhance your next charge attack. At 3 seconds you start restoring HP, and at 4.5 seconds you start restoring Chi. Lastly we have the Piercing Dart charged attack, which you can only use while in Charging Stance. It deals a multitude of sweeping attacks according to how many tokens of gratitude you have. Tokens of Gratitude is the resource used by the Unfettered rope dart to deal more hits with the charged skill. Let's take a look at the martial arts talents. Charged Combo Enhancement makes your Piercing Dart charge attack deal 1 extra hit per token of gratitude consumed, up to 7. Hitting an enemy with Piercing Dart reduces the cooldown of your Soul Sweep martial art by 0.5 seconds and restores 10 tokens of gratitude. Critical Rate Up increases your critical rate based on agility. Soul Break Critical Boost gives you up to 25% critical damage against enemies with Soul Break based on your critical rate. Bamboocut Attribute Up gives you Bamboocut attack and Bamboocut damage bonus based on your minimum Bamboocut attack. Attribute Attack Enhancement makes your abilities scale by 50% more with Bamboocut attack compared to physical attack. As you can see, the Unfettered rope dart is great at applying debuffs to the enemy, and it makes your umbrella martial arts spammable without worrying about resources. It also gives you a ton of damage buffs. Now that we finished talking about martial arts, it's time to see what the most optimal combos are for both PvE and PvP. The most optimal skill rotation for PvE goes like this.
It's over.
Start with the rope dart and use Soul Sweep, which will apply 3 stacks of Soul Loss. Immediately after the animation ends, spam the heavy attack button to use Piercing Dart. Let the skill animation end, and immediately after the last hit, press the special skill button. Keep in mind that Piercing Dart applies 2 stacks of Soul Loss per hit, so you only need to let it deal 2 hits to apply Soul Break once. If you want to min-max your DPS as much as possible, you don't need to let the skill end because it doesn't deal that much damage, and you only care about applying Soul Break, so you can cancel it earlier with Burn and Bury. After you press the special skill button, you will deal a good amount of burst damage. Start casting the Flute of the Tides Mystic skill and start moving backwards during the casting animation to create distance between yourself and the target. It's important to be at least 8 or 10 meters away from the target to get a 20% damage bonus from your gear set and from the Mystic skill. You should aim to be at maximum range from the target such that your umbrella throws damage the target at their maximum range. You can cancel the skill animation right after you reach maximum distance for the most efficient DPS. Switch to the umbrella and immediately start spamming Scarlet Spin. Keep an eye on the skill icon when it flashes to perform perfect catches. After the skill ends, immediately use the special skill to switch places with the Phantom Umbrella and get into close range, then use a parry cancel to stop the skill. Switch back to the rope dart and repeat the whole rotation again. On your second rotation, your Fruit of the Tides will still be on cooldown when you finish your Rope Dart rotation. Simply ignore it and dash backwards 2 times to reach maximum distance, then switch to the Umbrella and start spamming Scarlet Spin. On your third rotation, the Fruit of the Tides will be available again to use. Rinse and repeat the same rotation for maximum DPS in both solo and group content. It is important to unlock and upgrade the Fruit of the Tides Mystic skill to tier 5 for the maximum bonus damage in PvE. For PvP, the playstyle is pretty different because the target won't just sit still for you to perform your DPS rotation and you will never use Fruit of the Tides. Therefore, you need to rely more on your Rope Dart than your Umbrella. Always start the fight with the Rope Dart charging stance to enhance your next charge skill, then look for opportunities to engage or catch the enemy coming in. The Rope Dart has very good stagger and damage, and you can catch the enemy in a 10 hit stagger chain by simply using your martial arts skill, followed by the charged attack. Your special skill, Burn and Bury, is extremely strong in PvP because it deals good damage once and staggers the enemy, while also slowing their movement speed by a great amount. If you have the Toe Line Sweep Inner Way at tier 4, you will deal a good amount of damage whenever the Soul Break buff expires on enemies, so you can easily time this to engage and catch them when they're staggered. You can still use your Umbrella, especially against players that like to run away or against Stone Split builds to kite them, just be careful not to get parried. Usually you should use your Rope Dart rotation and then switch to the Umbrella and look to catch the enemy with your Scarlet Spin. Even though it seems weak, this skill is pretty strong if you catch the enemy once, because you can then keep chaining perfect catches and stagger the enemy into oblivion. You can use the Phantom Umbrella in combination with your Umbrella special skill as an engage combo to stagger the enemy, but keep in mind that this is very easy to parry, so cancel it early if the enemy is parrying. This build is pretty good in solo PvP, but it truly shines in group PvP. You should aim to catch at least 2 enemies together, usually where your tank is, and then start throwing umbrellas at them, which will stagger them, pull them in, and deal massive damage. You can then engage with your special skill to stagger them for a few seconds, then return to your initial location safe and sound. Whenever an enemy engages you and tries to kill you, just switch to the Rope Dart and fight them at close range. For Mystic skills, we have the following recommendations for PvE. Flute of the Tides is by far the best PvE skill for this build, as it can give you up to 20% extra damage at tier 5 if you're 10 meters away from the enemy. It also costs only 50 vitality, which is very cheap for what it does, so you can spam it. Meridian Touch, Celestial Seas and Cloud Steps to deal with various boss mechanics. For PvP Mystic skills, the same as always. Serene Breeze to get out of stagger, Cloud Steps as a gap closer, Soaring Spin as a quick damage dealer and dodging skill, Leaping Toad for high single damage and chi damage, Drunken Poet plus Dragon's Breath to quickly apply a damage over time debuff to enemies, Talon Strike as a quick engage and defense break skill, and Ghostly Steps as a defensive skill. Let's talk about Inner Ways, which provide you with even more damage and other useful buffs. The Phantom Rally Inner Way is by far the strongest. It makes your Scarlet Spin spawn Phantom Umbrellas at the first and every third throw, and performing perfect catches will trigger a resonance attack when spawning Phantom Umbrellas, dealing area damage. You get the following upgrades at tiers 1, 3, 4 and 6. At tier 1, triggering a perfect catch restores 10 Fading Crimson. This ensures you never run out. At tier 3, enemies damaged by resonance receive the Phantom Chime debuffs, stacking up to 5 times and lasting 5 seconds, which reduces the physical resistance by 2 per stack. At tier 4, resonance deals 20% more damage and pulls in nearby enemies once every 20 seconds. At tier 6, each returning umbrella spawns a Phantom Umbrella and triggers resonance immediately. This inner way is absolutely insane, as it makes you trigger resonance with each umbrella throw, and it ensures you never run out of resource to throw umbrellas. At tier 6, it's a massive DPS boost. Next we have the Song of Tang Inner Way, which is absolutely OP. Whenever you use a martial arts skill, which means all the time, you gain a Tang Melody buff, which lasts for 5 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. Each stack gives you 2% critical damage while above 50% HP and 2% HP drain while below 50% HP, capped at 2.5% of your max HP per second. You get the following upgrades at tiers 1, 3, 4 and 6. At tier 1, the duration of Tang Melody is increased to 7 seconds. At tier 3, each stack now gives you 3% critical damage and HP drain. At tier 4, hitting at least 2 enemies at the same time with a martial arts skill gives you 1 extra stack of tank melody. At tier 6, the HP drain effect is no longer restricted by your current HP, meaning it will be active all the time. This inner way essentially gives you either 15% critical damage or 15% HP drain, depending on your health percentage, and at tier 6, you get both buffs active at the same time, which is just insane. This is a crazy built-in healing passive. Next we have Towline Sweep, which gives you 50 tokens of gratitude whenever you use Soul Sweep. In the soul bound state, each hit of piercing dart applies 2 stacks of soul loss instead of 1, and the first sweep pulls enemies in. You get the following upgrades at tiers 1, 3, 4 and 6. At tier 1, the duration of soul break and soul return is increased to 18 seconds. At tier 3, piercing dart deals 5%, 10% or 15% more damage depending on the number of hits. At tier 4, when the soul break effect ends, the target takes damage based on 5% of the damage dealt during the duration of the debuff by the applier. At tier 6, Burn and Bury deals 15% increased damage and is a guaranteed critical hit. The Finger Snap refreshes your soul return state and immediately calculates and refreshes the soul break state on enemies. When calculating the damage for soul break, the multiplier is increased from 5% to 10%. This inner way makes it easier to apply soul break to enemies, it increases the duration of your debuffs and buffs, and it also deals extra damage based on your total DPS during the soul break duration. It's mandatory to use it just to ensure the soul break buff is active during your DPS rotation. Lastly, we have Light Anew, which is designed for group PvP. Whenever you hit 3 or more enemies at once, apply the Candlelight debuff on them for 3 seconds. Each stack reduces movement speed by 4% and increases damage taken by 2%, stacking up to 5 times. You get the following upgrades at tiers 1, 3, 4 and 6. At tier 1, the duration of the buff is increased to 5 seconds. At tier 3, dealing damage to an enemy with 5 stacks of Candlelight will stun them for 2 seconds once every 20 seconds. At tier 4, Candlelight is applied when hitting 2 enemies at once, down from 3. At tier 6, you deal 3% more damage to enemies with Candlelight, and if they are more than 8 meters away, you deal 6% more damage. This inner way gives you massive damage increase and crowd control against multiple enemies in PvP. It's insanely strong in Guild War or 3v3 arena, but for PvE it's useless. For PvE, your inner way configuration should look like this: Phantom Rally, Towline Sweep, Song of Tang, and Morale Chant. Now it is time to move to the Gear tab and talk about item sets, tuning attributes and more. First off, we want to use the Bamboocut arsenal, and for Divinecraft use either fire or poison, both are good. When it comes to gear sets, we are using Stars Align and Flawless Defense. Stars Align gives you 1 stack of Stars Align when you hit 2 or more enemies at once, or a player or boss enemy. For 5 seconds, your martial arts skills deal 3% more damage and up to 1% more against enemies that are 4 to 8 meters away from you. It stacks up to 5 times and 1 stack is removed when you take damage. This set is perfect for this build because you can maintain it easily during your DPS rotation and you essentially get between 15 and 20% more damage. You shouldn't worry about losing stacks if you get hit because you can stack it back up quickly. For the armor set, we are not using the Jade Embrace set simply because it's designed for PvP. It is great when you can control when you're going to take damage, such as when you engage with the Umbrella special attack, but in PvP you can control that. For this reason, we are going with Flawless Defense for the constant 5% damage reduction, up to 10% when falling below 60% HP. It's a more consistent and better overall defensive buff. If you're playing mainly group PvP with this build, then sure, Jade Embrace will be the best option. Now let's talk about the actual tuning and attuning attributes we should look for on our gear. How do we know which attributes are important for our build? The answer is pretty simple. We just need to go back and look at our talents and our skills and playstyle and see what stats they are focusing on. In our case, for the Bamboocut Dust Path, we need the following minimum attributes to reach 100% efficiency on our talents: 175 agility, 750 minimum physical attack, 197 minimum Bamboocut attack, and 60% critical rate. If we look at our martial arts, inner ways, item sets and overall build playstyle, we can see that the core idea of the build is to deal as much damage as possible during our 12 seconds DPS window using the Scarlet Spin skill. We get a ton of critical rate and critical damage buffs from various skills and items. The Perfect Catch talent makes every 4th umbrella that we throw a guaranteed critical hit. The critical rate up talent gives us critical rate. The Soul Break critical boost talent gives us 27% critical damage against targets with Soul Break. We get 15% critical damage from the Song of Tang Inner Way and a bunch more critical rate and damage from our Inner Way's tier 2 and 5 bonuses. The Toe Line Sweep Inner Way makes our Burn and Bury special skill a guaranteed critical hit. In order to take advantage of all these effects, we want to aim for 100% precision rate and then reach the critical rate cap of 80%. We should also get some affinity rate whenever possible to ensure we land as few normal hits as possible. Somewhere around 15 to 20% affinity rate would be great. The priority order for your tuning attributes on all gear pieces should be the following. The first and most important attribute which you want to have on every single gear piece is critical rate, which is the best way to get our critical rate to 80%. The second most important attribute which you want to have on every single gear piece is agility. Why? Because agility is the best way to gain critical rate besides the actual critical rate attribute. Remember that you want to get as close to 80% critical rate as possible. Every 1 point of agility will give you 0.1% critical rate and 1.12 minimum physical attack, so you are getting two of the most important stats just from this one attribute. Next, you want to roll precision rate until you reach 100%, then stop. Next, you want to roll minimum physical attack until you reach 750 to max out your talents. Then, you want to get a minimum Bamboocut attack until you reach 197 to max out your talents. After you are done with reaching 100% on all of your talents, for the remainder of your tuning slot, you should focus on minimum or maximum Bamboocut or physical attack and affinity rate. This is how an ideal min-maxed gear set would look like for the Sealbind Deluge path. Agility on all 8 gear slots, critical rate on all 8 gear slots, precision rate on 4 or 5 gear slots depending on how much you need to reach 100%, affinity rate on 4 or 5 gear slots just to get an extra boost, minimum physical attack on 4 or 5 gear slots depending on how much you need to reach 100% efficiency on the corresponding talents, minimum Bamboocut attack on 4 or 5 gear slots depending on how much you need to reach 100% efficiency on the corresponding talents, and maximum Bamboocut or maximum physical attack on the remainder of the slots. Your goals are to reach the critical rate cap, reach 100% efficiency on all talents, then reach 100% precision rate and then as much Bamboocut attack or physical attack as possible with a sprinkle of affinity rate around 20%. For attunement attributes priority for PvE, focus on the following. For weapons and accessories, you want to prioritize Bamboocut penetration, then physical penetration. For armor, you want to roll Everspring Umbrella Martial Arts skill damage boost, nothing else. For arena attunement attribute, use the following setup. And lastly, it's time for some advanced tips and tricks. You always want to maintain your distance in PvE to deal maximum possible damage with your Scarlet Spin martial art. Unfortunately, since there's no distance indicator in this game, you have to use other methods to figure out when you're at maximum range. Fortunately, there's an easy and quick way to do it. Since your DPS rotation always starts in melee range, you can simply press the dodge button twice to go back almost at maximum distance from the target. Then you can switch to your umbrella and start throwing umbrellas. Remember that when you use Burn and Bury in solo PvE, you enter the breath hold state, so you can use that time to use a potion or position yourself away from the enemy to start your umbrella combo. For group PvP, you can engage with the umbrella special skill during the middle of your DPS rotation to stagger enemies and pull them in for your teammates, and then quickly go back to a safe spot and resume throwing umbrellas for DPS. At the end of your PvE DPS rotation, remember to always use the special skill to swap places with your Phantom Umbrella to get in range for the Rope Dart combo. In PvP you have to rely on your Rope Dart most of the time, but the Umbrella can be used to zone out the enemy. You can then act based on how they react to you throwing umbrellas at them. If they get hit by the first throw, you can immediately follow up with the special skill for a bit of damage and then go back. With the Rope Dart, the main goal is to apply Soul Break to enemies, which makes them take a ton of damage, and then use Burn and Bury to create an engage window, because it deals stagger damage and slows the enemy. Make use of your charging stance during PvP if the enemy is far away to recover some chi, health, and more importantly to enhance your charge skill. You can use Soaring Spin into cancel into Soul Sweep as a great engage combo. Always play more aggressively when you fall below 50% health, because you get HP drain from the Song of Tang Inner Way, and you get extra damage reduction from your Flawless Defense set. This build can face tank a lot of damage when at low health, and you have so much stagger and burst that you can destroy boss enemies even on a beast difficulty while tanking their damage. The build is extremely fun to play, very rewarding, and it has a lot of intricate combos you can do, resulting in a satisfying and strong build overall. I believe this is one of the best DPS builds in PvE at the moment, and it absolutely destroys group PvP content. Hopefully this video has helped you understand how the Bamboocut Dust Path works and how to maximize your DPS and perform the best combos. Leave a comment below if you have any other tips and tricks for the Bamboocut Dust Path. That would be it for this video, and if you found this information helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.